Hot stove conversations about baseball, history, football, and current events that may leave you saying there's more to consider. Now, here's your host, Jack Moore.
Welcome to More to Consider. Jack and Charles here. We did a live today, and we're going to be doing some more of that. We'll probably have to do a better job of getting that information out, but we're doing some live podcasts as well. But, we're doing another recorded one here. Charles, how are you, sir?
I'm doing okay. My stomach's full now, so I feel better.
Yeah, me too. I ate, and I kind of like what I did.
Hmm.
I like where I went with what I got to eat tonight. All right. So I wanted to preface what we're going to discuss with, and I'm beating a dead horse. I know I bring this up all the time, but I'm really interested in why people think what they think, how they come to the conclusions they do, what influences their thoughts, etc. So I look at this timeline of all of our major wars, post-American Civil War. They have a thing: Maine, Lusitania, Pearl Harbor, Gulf of Tonkin. There's always a trigger. And of course, 9/11, War on Terror. I just did another show the other day on the Kennedy assassination, how that changed America, coming out of the 50s into the 60s. Still a somewhat innocent time. Mr. Ed's on, Andy Griffith, etc. We have this world that we're living in. Kennedy's shot. The war escalates in Vietnam. We now know some of the lives involved. Many people, it's a turning point leading to Watergate a decade later. So then you have Watergate, whatever the hell that means, but it creates this question of, do we trust the government, et cetera, et cetera. Now we get into 9/11. That's the next granddaddy of them all. We all lived through that. And I can't believe it's been a quarter of a century ago, but that's basically where we are. How time flies. So we set up all these dynamics. Things come out. The Rockefeller Commission, the Church Committee, in the mid-1970s, Congressional Senate hearings on the CIA and how we've been lied to, how our media has been influenced, clearly, that it started off as one thing and probably ended up as another. Originally, it was to influence foreign countries in their media, maybe their elections. I don't think that was necessarily a written mandate. It was the CIA was formed originally to gain intelligence and to give that to the executive branch, to give it to the president, maybe pass it on to other entities that would give them a better read on where we are in foreign affairs. And then we find out that they're acting somewhat roguely, as is roguely a word? They're acting in a rogue fashion in a way that they're shaping foreign policy. And, Truman, I think, said something to the effect that, man, if I had it to do all over again, probably the worst thing I ever did was signing off on this formation of the CIA. So we both get to 2020. I'm in March, first week in March. I'm watching the Red Sox and Yankees in Legends Field or Legends Stadium, whatever they call it there in Tampa with the Yankees. And I'm seeing the Red Sox. And I start driving back March 2020, and I'm hearing stuff. And the first person that told me about shutdowns was my friend Charles. And I remember I was out walking, and he's like, "Hey, dude, they're getting ready to shut things down." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" Well, they're saying 2 weeks to slow the curve, or all this, or to. And then it starts to happen. Then I realize pretty early on, the death information's not making sense, that it's as great a threat to a 35-year-old healthy person, et cetera, et cetera. And then all the rest is what we lived through, leading to the vaccine, where it goes from Kamala Harris at one point saying, "I'd never take this Trump vaccine," to, "I'm ready to be a part of a regime that wants you to have it mandated." It's what I remember from the Twilight Zone, 1984. Brave New World, we've worn out those kind of comparisons. So today you say you want to talk about COVID and the mind thing and what's still going on. I have to open with this. So this is my first question to you. A friend just asked me, what's up with the mask wearing still? Do you think it's more of a ongoing psychological damage, or do you think it's all political, or do you think it's a combination of the two?
I think it's a combination of the two.
I do too.
Really? Yeah.
I think some people are still frightened. I think that, yeah. And I do think some people wear it to show I'm not the other side.
Right.
I want to
it's
identify.
Their uniform.
It is the uniform. Yeah. And David Hogg, I guess it is, famously of the
Parkland.
school shooting in Florida, Parkland. Yeah, he came out when all the mandates began to be pulled, when they finally said states, and I guess even when they lifted it from flights and everything else where the federal government had any jurisdiction or authority, he famously came out with some type of social media messaging where he says, damn, like, I don't know how I feel about this because I don't want to take the mask off and have somebody maybe misidentify me as a Republican. I mean, he
Right.
literally made that statement, which kind of lets the cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
That
It's all a
we
show.
all identify. It's all shit. Well, and it's like, hey, I'm one of us. You know, don't get me wrong here. I'm of that camp. And it again was probably inadvertent, but it's kind of slipping it out. So where are you with all this? Where do you think we are? October 28th, year of our Lord 2025. Where is all this to this day?
I don't think we're that far off, except for far off than it was in 2020, except for COVID caused people, in a lot of cases, by force, to start questioning things. Even the things that were being told that were good for our health. We started asking, but why? Why is it that this virus is different than any other virus that's ever been, unleashed or that's ever affected human beings? And we kept being told, well, it is different. Okay, but you haven't really explained to me why it's different. Why is it that you're telling me that I have to get something that's technically an experiment to protect you from me? I don't quite understand that. If you get it and it works, then you should be protected. You really shouldn't care who you're around because, hey, I have the magic jab. So I should be all right. But that wasn't the case. When they took it a step further and they started making all these illogical edicts, that's when people were like, okay, no, this is some BS. And since this is some BS, what other BS are you trying to force down my throat too? And I think that was the best thing about COVID is that we really got to see who was telling the truth, who had an agenda, and who was willing to stick their neck out for the truth. And a lot of people lost their livelihoods, whether it be just a, average American job, I shouldn't say average, but an American job. And then there were the YouTubers, and how many YouTubers lost their livelihoods because of this, because they dared to go against the narrative. And then there's this group of people who turn on the dime, which you just brought up one, Kamala Harris, and I'm not taking the Trump vaccine. And then several months later, trying to force everybody to take it. It's the same thing, the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's actually what I told my doctor. My doctor was pushing it. I'm like, hey, do I really want to take something when the now vice president of the United States is all for even potentially going as far as to mandate it, when several months ago, not that many months ago, she said I would never. She was, well, that's just politics. And I'm like, still though, does that not give you pause for concern?
Yeah.
That someone that's a lot closer to the truth about what's going on in its formation, she's got a lot more access to the truth than I do. Why is she saying it's a Trump vaccine and I won't touch it? And months later, not only is it great, I think we're going to force it upon. I do want to say one thing in response, though. I do think it did have some level of validity. The one argument to mandate, not that I would accept that you could ever mandate anything of this nature, but that one argument that overcame, because I thought the same thing, was like, well, wait a minute. If you just said you're 100% protected, you can't pass it on and you can't get it, which was all bullshit. We learned over time, clearly, right? But I thought the same thing. Like, what do you care if you enter the room? If you've got the super jab and you're completely covered, what do you care whether I do? The argument was always there are some that medically can't get it and you're protecting them.
Right.
So for those people, right, that was always the argument. Like,
yeah.
Granny Jones might be in the room and she can't take it because of some kind of other ailment or situation. Therefore, it's your duty to protect her by getting vaccinated.
It was all BS.
Of course.
It was all BS.
Of course.
Remember being on a conference call with people all across the country, and I'm kind of like one of the lone voices and wanted to go against this. And I would just say it was a union conference call. I used to be in a federal government union. And this kind of sort of got me on the path of getting out of the union. Listen to all these people who were saying, yeah, but we need to do this. We need to do this. And I said, well, yeah, but I'm calling into question the people who are telling me that I need to do this, which is the federal government. Yeah, but still. And I said, yeah, but aren't we here because we don't believe that the federal government is actually doing the right thing? That's literally the sole purpose of our existence here when it comes to being in the union. Crickets.
Right.
Crickets. They had no response to this. So I said, how many people here have actually read what the NIH and the CDC have said about the testing? Well, no, but it's safe and effective. You know, they've done the testing. I said, I'm going to repeat my question. How many people here have done the research on this and read what they've said on their own platforms? Crickets again. I said, well, thanks, because I just happen to have it in front of me, and it's only going to take me less than 30 seconds to read it. And I read what they said on both the sites. It was essentially the same thing. And I said, but listen to this part. It is, I think that was like June of 2021. And I said on their own websites, it said that the testing is not going to be completed until the earliest, the middle of 2023. So for all the people that were saying that it had been tested and it's safe and stuff like that, the government itself is saying that they haven't even completed the testing. But you want to force it on people. And again, more crickets. So after the conference call was over with, it was kind of interesting. I started getting phone calls from other people around the country and emails saying, you were saying the same thing that I was thinking, but you know, I couldn't really say it because of my job or whatever. And I said to them, well, you know, my job is saying that I pretty much going to have to get it or else. And I'm actually prepared for the what else. I'm not going to be an experiment when it comes to this. And then come to find out, I think a lot of us were correct. The instances of people literally dropping dead of heart conditions, people who are in tip-top condition. I mean, high-level athletes, professional athletes that are literally dropping dead, and they can't explain why. The was it myocarditis? The cases of myocarditis going through the roof all of a sudden. But that one thing that really got me was that if you remember in 2021, there's virtually no cases of the flu reported.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing, there's this website called Worldometers. I used to follow Worldometers every single day. It's some really interesting statistics and stuff up there, but they really kept about as accurate of COVID deaths and infections as pretty much anybody else could around the world. And I kept noticing that China's numbers were so low for a country of 1.2, 1.3 billion people. They had 50,000 deaths, and we were in over a million at the same time. But then I started realizing, oh, that's right. China was actually recording COVID deaths, not people, getting killed on a motorcycle and then calling it a COVID death because the guy just happened to have it. That's what we were doing here in the United States. China wasn't doing that.
Yeah. And I listened to an official on a podcast, and it's been quite some time ago because that became a very famous one. And I think it came from Michigan.
No, Savannah, Georgia.
It was Georgia. I thought they said
Savannah, Georgia.
Okay. All right. But, well, the story was they had to come up with a timeline of saying, okay, if someone is diagnosed as COVID positive, or they have been tested positive for COVID, what are we going to draw the line at the death? And they said 30 days. So the guy on the motorcycle, the argument was he did test positive, and within 30 days, he was in a motorcycle accident where he lost his life, clearly from the tragedy of a motorcycle incident. But he comes up because he was in the bank as within the 30 days of a COVID diagnosis, it was a COVID death. And it wasn't so much that they were saying, according to this official, that they're claiming COVID killed him. It's that he tested positive for COVID within 30 days. Now, that didn't create 62% of the deaths or anything else, but it was one of those that became the poster child for this isn't accurate at all. And I was just looking at a chart here. I just wanted to make this point. It says in November of 2019, this is, of course, just pulled directly from the internet, first human cases reported in Wuhan, China. And I've heard it could have been as early as October, but they're saying November. Then it says, first confirmed case in the United States, January 19. And you know my story on this, and I'll tell it to the audience. I flew to Florida. I actually saw my buddy that was a college baseball player in the area, and we were good friends. I just actually saw him over the weekend because he came up for Norfolk State's for their homecoming. Yeah, and I flew down there to do some baseball stuff with my buddy. So I fly down to like Orlando, and well, he's in Kissimmee, but I do this baseball thing, and I fly back, I think New Year's Eve 2020. And I'm not a big New Year's Eve guy into New Year's Day, but I go to bed basically because I can't do anything else. And the new year comes and goes, and I wake up with the bed completely covered in sweat from one end of the corner of the bed to the other. I'm freezing cold, the teeth chattering. I'm like, I've never been this cold in my life. I get up, I throw 3 more blankets on the bed, and I'm like, what the hell's wrong with me kind of thing. And within a couple of days, I can't eat, and I cough in a fashion I have never coughed in my life. Mm-hmm. I can't breathe from coughing the way I'm going. In the span of 2 weeks, I go to a doc in the box, I call it. I go to one of these urgent care places. And I said, one time I had pneumonia before. Well, we'll do a chest x-ray. They're like, yep, you got pneumonia. In the span of about 10 days, I lose 16 pounds because I'm not eating.
Right.
Yeah, I lose 16 pounds. I'm teaching at the college at the time. When I find out that I have the pneumonia, we have 2 weeks to prepare for class. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do all my class preparation at home. The dean's like, fine, because when I was practicing law and did that, I had a doctor come after me after 1 week of a pneumonia diagnosis saying, you trying to kill yourself? And I'm like, no. And he goes, did you go back to work? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm a lawyer. I got to go to work. And he goes, well, you still have pneumonia. This is serious. Don't play around. So this time I'm like, okay, I'm going to take the week off. And I do. And then in March, late March, maybe later, maybe April, I go see my primary care physician for the first time. And my memory is we had not yet had mask mandates. I think I went in but it was like a follow-up. She knew about my pneumonia, my doctor, my primary care. And I go back on a visit. And now the cat's out of the bag. Everybody's like, it's COVID. People are getting COVID. And I remember her reaction. I thought looking back, it was quite strange. I said, hey, with all this COVID, I bet that plane flight. And I called that buddy of mine. His son's playing Division I baseball now. So I was staying at the house with him. I'm like, hey, either one of you guys sick? No. So I'm figuring I got it on the flight back. Because if I got it on the flight coming down, being around them as much as I was, they probably would have something too. They don't. They're like, no, brother, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's been tough couple of weeks. So anyway, I'm with that doctor. And I said, hey, you know what? With all this coming out, I bet that's what. No, absolutely no one in the country got it till yesterday. Just got really emotionally like, you don't think that maybe, no one in the United States had it. So now I see this reported January 19th, I'm sorry. And I'm thinking, and I've heard a lot of stories from a lot of friends. Yeah, I got deathly ill in November and December. And I had the plane flight aspect, which is always what made me think that's what I got. Who knows who's on the flight, where the plane has been. It's funny that I get sick like that. So I say all that to say, once they started talking vaccine, honestly, I was like, screw that. I'm not taking the experimental. Mm-hmm. I think I have natural immunity, right? Which was another discussion with medical doctor. But you don't know if you knew the danger you're in. You're in incredible danger, incredible. And I said, I'll take my chances. But I said, look, I'm flipping a coin between two things. I had 16-pound weight loss, pneumonia, like I've never coughed in my life. I wasn't aware to even consider whether I had loss of smell or taste or anything, because I didn't even think about it because nobody really reported that yet. So funny, a year later, I have a little bit of back spasm, which is exactly what led to the last thing. I go to a doc in the box again, and they said, yep, you just tested positive. I never run a fever. I never run a temperature above normal. I don't cough at all. but I lose sense of smell totally. And then that came back. So that was my second bout with it. And then again, that led to a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth. Well, now you've got to get the vaccine. I'm like, why would I get the vaccine now?
Yeah.
I think I've had it, and now I've had a second bout with it with actually no symptoms. I mean, I was 98.6 the whole time, or 98.4. I usually run a little bit lower than normal. So I was like, hey, I'll take my chances. The fact that I wanted to take my chances and led to that type of emotional reaction scared the hell out of me because I was more scared of other people's reaction. And I will say this too. The other thing that really opened up my eyes, in May of 2020, I went to another urgent care place because they were offering free antibody tests. And I was like, hey, I'm going to go see if I got antibodies because it's been 5 months since this, what I thought might have been it. And they screw it all up. They totally screw it up. I don't get the report. And I come back and there's a young lady at the front desk. And she goes, let me guess, you came to get the antibody test yet? And she goes, I bet they lost your paperwork. And I'm like, yeah. And she's kind of rolling her eyes. She's a nurse. So we get to talking. I'm like, what do you think of this whole thing in general? She goes, I'll tell you this. It's really got me thinking. I said, what's that? She goes, I got 2 really close friends. We're all registered nurses. I'm like, okay. And these 2 were like, this is just kind of their nature. They're like, we are tough guys. We want to save the world. They jumped in the car and drove to New York. So this is in Virginia. And I said, yeah. And she goes, they ride to New York and they go hospital to hospital and there's no need for them. None. And she goes, this is what I can tell you directly. They're expecting that there's gurneys out there in the parking lot with all the backflow of people that they can't treat. You know, it's going to, and everything is completely like quiet. So they get up there and they're like, hey, we're nurses. We're trained. We have our cards. We can show our identification, our certifications. I go home. And basically they just pile back in the car and went home. And she goes, that I know from 2 of my closest friends. They went up there and there was nothing to do. Now, I know somebody listening is going, oh, no, gosh, I had a friend and it was incredibly bad in New York, but they rode to try to help and said they found nothing. It was nothing that was not manageable by the staff already on staff at the time. They had plenty of people to handle whatever was going on. So then that got me thinking, because that was May of 2020. And remember, on a lot of the news agencies, they would show these scenes where it appeared that everything was totally out of control. It was blood in the streets, you know. So there's some mind control going on there. But where do you think we are? Well, let me ask you this too. I want to ask you this first. I have a friend who's struggling with a lot now and has been diagnosed with long COVID. And some people say it's a thing and some people say it's not. I've certainly read a lot that there are concerns that people have had some long-term, and I know this from the 2 times I've had pneumonia. From everything I see, your lungs never actually ever totally recover from any kind of incident like that. Like you're always working at a deficit to some degree, breathing. You get some regeneration, but it's never the same. Like having pneumonia, and you know this as well, otherwise perfectly healthy older people, that often takes them out. You know, they'll get to 90 and they're doing pretty well. Then boom, they get pneumonia. It's over. You know, it's falling, breaking a hip. Losing mobility is always one of the leading causes of death. As you get older, when you lose mobility, but pneumonia is huge among the elderly as a problem. When you think about heart, lung, you think about air, you think about circulation, it's key to survival is what your lungs can do. So I ask you, how much of this do you believe is true about people still suffering long-term effects from any bout of COVID they had?
I'm sure, just like any other disease or virus that goes around, that millions, if not billions of people actually get sick from. There's going to be these outliers where there's some people that don't completely recover from it. It just is what it is. To paint everybody with a broad brush and say, hey, you know, I was fine, then how come not everybody else is?
Right.
When I got COVID, I think I got diagnosed on a Tuesday. Yeah, because I was coming back from Florida. I got diagnosed on a Tuesday.
So you too were coming back from Florida.
Yeah.
Wow.
This was in 2021.
Okay, a year later. Okay.
And I by Friday, I was out running again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, whatever, dog. Did I feel a little tired? Just a little bit. Not much. I've had colds that were much worse than what I had when it came to COVID. But I tell you, it was really interesting leaving the country. Because I went to Egypt and Turkey in September of 2020 during the height of COVID. It was the best time to travel, by the way, because nobody was out traveling. But when you left here, you started to see how other people were dealing with it. And they were just like, yeah, it's just a cold. Pretty much that's how other countries looked at it. Other Eastern countries, I should say. The Western countries were the ones that were, their heads were exploding or whatever for some odd reason, except for Sweden. We all know the whole Sweden thing. But at least in those two countries, very few people wearing masks, anything like that. It was pretty much business as usual. The only issue that you would possibly have was once you got onto an airplane.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, yeah, kind of everybody needs to have on a mask. And I remember getting on the airplane at Dulles on my way to Turkey. And, I would look every so many days before my flight to see if I could get a better seat. Because a lot of times the closer you get to your date at your departure day, you can get a discount on an upgraded seat. It happens sometimes. But one of the things I kept noticing is that there were so many seats available on the flight itself. It's a 777, a Boeing 777. It's a humongous plane. The 300, close to 400 people on that plane. And there was a lot of seats left on that flight. And then when I get to Dulles, the plane is full. It's full. So then I have to catch a connecting flight from Istanbul to Cairo. That plane was full. And back to Istanbul, the plane was full. And back to the United States, the plane was full. We're talking like no seats available on the plane. So it was a case of the United States here, we were running like chickens with their heads cut off. But a good portion of the world was just like, I'm not playing this game. It was just not.
Okay, so when you refer to this East-West dynamic, the separation of the East from the West, when you say things were different in the East, this is the time where in America, we're already pretty much into mask mandates. Social distancing was a new perfect. That was a early on thing, but were you finding mask mandates in some of these countries that were in the East?
It was completely optional.
Optional.
Yeah,
okay.
Completely optional. And most people didn't wear one.
Right.
Social distancing didn't exist.
Right.
Didn't exist. No.
Not at all.
No
6x6x6,
no.
666 type
Nope.
thing.
None of that junk.
6 in the front, 6 in the rear, 6 to the side.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny how they. Well, and I think that was one of the many Fauci's that was really interesting too.
Yeah.
Did he not admit? Like,
Yep.
yeah, we just picked that out of a hat.
Yep, he sure did.
Yeah, there was.
Fauci himself really caused a lot of the questioning because he, first of all, some of us remembered, there was pretty much a movie made about this guy and his failures called Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah, the whole AIDS thing. Yeah.
He caused a lot of this AIDS, the AIDS death. Maybe I should say caused. He contributed to a lot of AIDS deaths for the fact that the medication that he was pushing didn't work. And as a matter of fact, it made things worse and then prohibited other people from getting alternative medications.
That did.
Wow. Sound awfully familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
He did the same exact thing when it came to COVID. Exact same thing.
Wasn't it the same like push for a vaccine? That's why some of the alternative medications or other means of treatment for HIV positive were being shut down, basically, was to get to what this other thing he wanted to do. Wasn't that more of the story?
Yes, but for the same reason that he was doing the same push for the COVID vaccine.
Right.
Was because the emergency use authorization.
Sure, right. If anything else was viable, it killed it. Yeah.
He owns patents.
Sure.
And Fauci was the highest paid government employee, period.
Yeah, I always thought that was weird. Yeah, it was like $453,000 or something.
Oh, no. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was close to 800.
I think it was the president had gone to 425. I think it exceeded the president, but I thought, let me just see. Let me see if I can find
Now,
it.
I could be mistaken, but
I think it was in the 450s.
so
Dr. Fauci's highest income from the government. Again, this is just scanning the internet to see if there's an answer. 17 what
okay.
was
I'm
listed
sorry.
in 2019. I thought he got in the 435 range. He made 417,608 in 2019. That's pre-COVID. In fact, Fauci even made more than the 400,000 of the president. Okay, so the
Yeah.
president's not 4.25; it's 400,000.
Right.
All salary data was collected by the Open Books, Freedom Information Act, etc. Now, it also says, it gets into other means of income stream, you might want to say. He got some income. Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that should surprise a lot of people but getting paid more than the president of the United States, you'd kind of think that the federal government, if you have a structure of payment of income for all the jobs in the country, it wouldn't exceed. But I was really shocked when, as a member of the teaching staff at a community college in Virginia, what the chancellor made in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I thought it was 400 plus at one time. Then I looked and found out, because it's all public record, it was in excess of $500,000 per year.
I don't want to get into the weeds here, but there's a bunch of city and county executives out in California that are making 800,000
Yeah.
plus as a retirement. Yeah.
Right.
As a retirement. So yeah, there are a lot of public, quote unquote, public officials or employees that are making more than the president, but it is what it is. Regardless, Fauci really ended up causing a lot of people to question everything. When people start questioning one thing, they're going to start questioning other things. And I think that's why we're at the point that we're in right now, whereas nobody trusts, I should say nobody, the vast majority of people do not trust the alphabet news organizations. And COVID had a lot to do with it. Yeah, had a lot to do with it.
Well, but I was seeing questions about 9/11 before the decade was over. I mean, that was the 2001 incident. And I remember what shook me to the core as a documentary was Why We Fight by Eugene Jarecki. And I want to say that was 2005.
It's something like that.
So within 4 years, they're already getting into how much we may have been lied to about circumstances. And it was what Loose Change was the organization or what it was putting out a lot of stuff. So, I mean, there were immediate questions about that even then. And then as some of these wars in certain places in the world that the United States was involved in began to drag on, and then there were questions about, as you know, during the Bush 43 administration, lots of questions about, did you tell us the whole truth about why we're in these certain places? So this is not a new phenomenon, which, saying all that, made it somewhat surprising that, okay, let me put it this way. I don't think that people had the wool pulled over their eyes with COVID nearly as much as it might have appeared. I think it was more that you didn't have the same social costs that you had with COVID. For the first time, you could lose a job over a position you took. Yeah, social media had so exploded that you could put things out and get in real trouble. And when doctors were losing their licenses or their opportunities to practice in certain hospitals because they didn't treat the way they were told to treat, that becomes pretty scary.
So I lost a job because of it.
Yeah.
I've told part of this with my other side hustle, if you want to call it that, used to be. I was a high level runway photographer.
Right.
And in 2021, I shot a series of shows in Miami for the premier runway photography company on the planet. I was their house photographer, which is essentially the photographer who is at the top of the food chain when it comes to a fashion show or something like that, for this company for Miami Swim Week. So all was well. And I remember getting a phone call in January of 2022 because New York Fashion Week is about to start. And they asked me, it's like, hey, we would love for you to come and work for us again. We really liked your work from Miami. I said, yeah, I would love to come and work for you, but I can't. And they're like, why? I said, because I didn't get shot. My doctor just recommended that I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, okay, well, thanks. Your service is no longer needed. Just like that. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason that was so important to have the shot was because of all the craziness that was going on in New York City, that you had to have a card to prove that you had, the shot and all this other good stuff, or else they wouldn't let you in the building. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And because of this, I pretty much lost that job.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I worked for several years to get to that point where I could, work for a company like that and to do the work that I was doing. I mean, again, highest level, higher than Getty Images.
Mm-hmm.
And I could no longer work for them because I couldn't get into the venue. Legitimately, legally get into the venue. And don't get me wrong, there were a lot of people who had fake cards. And I probably should have just should have gone and done the same thing. But I just wasn't going to play that game. And I was just like, okay, it is what it is. But for me, that was just something small. But there were people that literally lost their entire livelihood because they said, I'm not going to do that. And my doctor said not to. And then their employer was just like, so what? We're still going to fire you because we don't want any backlash from whoever else. And dude, that's straight BS, man, to do that to people.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
just wrong.
But I can understand how middle management gets stuck in those situations, because you come in and say, I have a legitimate reason, could be religious, could be medical, I mean, whatever. And they're like, well, we do it for you. We got to do it for Timmy down the hall and all the rest. And
Yeah,
you
then
just
you
feel
have to do
stuck
it.
because
Well, but
right. But I mean, they're getting pressed for 100%, and then
but I deal with this on a daily basis at the place that I work at. And I've said this in a group of managers, higher level managers. And I said, I'm sorry, the Nuremberg defense is just not a reason for you not doing your job or doing the right thing. It's just not. But these people just say, well, I have to do this because somebody's telling me to do that. But it's wrong. Yeah, but I have to do it because I'm being told to do it. No. Stand up for what's right. Stand it, because some of us do.
I know. Everybody's got their own, crosses to bear and all the rest. I mean, like I said, I get it when somebody takes that route. I get it when they're getting pressure from above. There's something that seems asinine about these type of policies. And my mind just went to something. It's one of the most fascinating things I ever heard. Perry was doing talk radio in Norfolk. You probably remember him.
Yeah.
He did a show one day because he would do the FM shock jock stuff in the morning and then come over and do an afternoon drive time. And he had a show, and it's when they had gone to zero tolerance at the schools. So there's a young lady, 14, I think. So 14 would make her about the 8th grade. So I think she's in middle school. She has a 4.17 GPA. I mean, whatever the max is, she's 4.0 plus. She's taken, she's crazy, well adjusted to the education system. She's doing great. And she has absolutely no absences, no brushes with the school law, no in-school suspension, no disciplinary action taken towards her at all, right? So it was in the city of Portsmouth. And they had come out with the zero tolerance as to possession on campus of fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
Guns, that's a clear one. Knives, pocket knives, it could have even been like an emery board. I mean, I don't know. It could be all kinds of things. But one of them was any type of mace, pepper spray, etc. Right? Okay. You with me? All right. So on said day, it is very chilly, very cold. Daughter is heading towards front door, and mom says, honey, before you get out of here, you got to get your coat. Well, it's upstairs. Okay. The bus is pulling up or whatever. Here, take my coat. They're about the same size. The daughter's 14, but the mom, is not much larger, whatever. Just put my coat on, honey. You'll be fine. So she goes into school, and there's some level of pre-check, some type of a check at the door. And they're patting her down or whatever goes on. Something happens, and they're like, they find mace. They find a spray bottle of some type of defense, pepper spray, whatever it is. So they take her right down to the office. And she says, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Mom threw her coat on me right as I was leaving the door." And they're like, "Sorry, we're going to have to suspend you." No, actually expel. She was going to be expelled for the year. So they call mom. Mom shows up and mom's like, "Look, don't punish my baby. She had nothing to do with this. I gave her the coat. It is my coat. It is my pepper spray. We don't care. Zero tolerance. If we cut a break to you." So Perry, of course, brings them on the air and they get a school official. They get a school official to come and answer. Well, he's on the phone. I think the two of them were in the studio, mom and daughter. And I'm listening to it that day. And this is that exact example I'm talking about. I felt bad for the school guy. I really did. But he kept sticking to it. He goes, "Hey, when we say zero tolerance," and of course, Perry was Perry. He was like, "Hey, dude, hey, the girl's got a straight A average. She's college bound. This is the one you want out there. This is the banner girl for what you try to do in public education. Why are you cutting her off at the knees with this?" "Sorry, she brought it on campus." "She didn't know she brought it on campus." "Doesn't matter. That's why we have zero tolerance." And it's that kind of example. He goes, "Well, if we cut her a break, we got to cut everybody a break." He goes, "Nah, you really probably don't have to cut everyone a break, because if somebody has it in their backpack and they put it there and they don't have a mom to come to school and say it's my coat." And, that's kind of a topic for a show right there. Like, when does something like that, a zero tolerance policy, become absurd to the point it's actually working against its stated mission?
Well, this is a case that is working against a stated mission, for the fact that this kid probably would have been like the valedictorian or something like that.
Sure.
Speaking on the behalf of the class that she's graduating in and so on and so forth. And they're just going to throw her out because of this zero tolerance policy that really shouldn't. Zero tolerance should never really exist. There's always nuances in whatever rule or statute or whatever. Zero tolerance just, all that does is it removes the need for people to actually make a decision to do their job.
Exactly.
That's all it does. And this clown who's up there saying, "Well, zero tolerance." No, do you have a brain? Can you think? Well, if I have to think for this one, then damn it, I got to think for all the other ones. That's your job. Then do it. Or else please leave. Leave it to people who have no issue with thinking. All you're doing is literally taking up a position. That's all you're doing. As we used to call these people in the military, he's an oxygen thief. That's all he is.
Yeah.
And there was, how many oxygen thieves did we expose during COVID? A lot. A whole lot. "I'm just doing my job. Sorry, we have to fire you. I'm just doing my job." But dude, I've had COVID already. "Sorry, I'm just doing my job." No, man. No. Stand up for what's right.
It was a perfect environment for that. It was perfect environment to bring out the best in those that are rules followers. I mean, that's really,
Well, some rules followers, because there was this rule about, if you have a virus and you recovered from it, then you're good. They completely ignored that rule.
But that no longer applied once Dr. Fauci had ruled on that. Once he said it doesn't apply here.
Yes.
Yeah, I said on the last show, there was a famous video of him where he was on like Good Morning America, and he's pushing 25 years ago. It's just a day in American life, early 2000s, I guess. And they're pushing to get your flu vaccine. And a woman calls in. The woman's like, "Hey, Dr. Fauci, love your work, but hey, my daughter just recovered from the flu. What's her take on this? What's her move?" And he goes, "Oh, what, are you kidding? You don't do that. Like, what, are you kidding? She's got natural immunity. Come on. He's doing that number. And somebody unearths that. And they're like, "Hey, remember this? Well, that was different. That wasn't COVID." Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So they get him on tape, saying.
Let's hop in our magic machine right now and mix up some timelines. What do you think Trump would have done if COVID was released today and Fauci was in the same position? Do you think that he would have fired Fauci? Or do you think that he would have kept him on? And also, do you think all the draconian rules and stuff like that they tried to come up with, or they did come up with when it came to how they handled, specifically the federal government, how they handled COVID, do you think that he would have gone for it?
Well, I think first of all, in an analysis of 2020, and this is exactly what I was thinking as it went down, as I've told you, I was in the hallway on or about March 13th, year of our Lord 2020, and a friend of mine who was very anti the cathedral and a fan of Trump said, as we were shutting the doors to the school, what do you think's going on? I'm like, I tell you exactly what's going on. They're getting ready to blame all COVID deaths on Trump, and they're going to monkey around with the election somehow. This is going to be a cover to do something. And she will tell you, I said that in the hallway in March. I knew exactly. To me, this was, I see what's going on here. You know, and I've said this several shows. It goes back to that December of 2019 prior to Christmas where I saw Alphabet Agency, pretty people, pretty guy, pretty girl. And the girl goes through the list of Trump's accomplishments, how stable everything is in 2019. And at the tail end of that, you know, reciting all this beautiful work of Trump, she goes, son of a bitch, how the hell are we going to get rid of this guy? And the response of pretty guy was, I don't know. What if we had like an economic catastrophe? And when he said that, I'm like, oh shit, they're getting ready to do something. Swear to you. I've told you the story a million times, but I swear to you, I thought something's getting ready to happen. So when it started to happen, I think where he got really tied up, if you remember in like April-ish around Easter, he goes, hey, yeah, we'll tie this thing up in a couple of weeks. Yeah. And we'll go back to normal. And then the press went full court. Son of a bitch doesn't get it. He's not a medical doctor.
He doesn't care. Right.
He doesn't care. People are dying everywhere. And then I think, you know, and I think what happened is Fauci became such a figure of reverence on that side that if he'd have fired him, see, he really doesn't care about health. He just got rid of probably the greatest pioneer in American history and in medicine in American history. So I think he kind of got hamstrung into, I got to keep the guy around, try to make nice with him. And you remember too, even in the campaign, there was a point where Fauci said something sort of positive in how things had been handled. And it's true. Trump turned it into a campaign ad. You know, Dr. Fauci says I'm doing a wonderful job. He comes out immediately. Hey, get something straight right now. I am not for that guy. And I never said anything positive about him or his administration. So then I was kind of like, okay, because it was personal to him. And it seemed like I don't want anybody to think I'm a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
So I just think he was tied up. I don't think now when you ask the question today, I would certainly hope there's no Fauci already in place today in that position.
I'm just saying hypothetically if he was. And the reason that I asked the question because there's
I think he'd fire him now because he can't run for re-election.
That's exactly where I was going with this.
Yeah, fire his ass, yeah.
And the people that he has surrounding him are a lot different than the ones that he had surrounding him his first administration.
No question, yeah. Yeah.
I that whole time period was really interesting in world history because there was just such a difference as to how people who you would think would think of things logically just completely threw logic out the window. They just did.
Yeah.
Was it the Ministry of Truth that did this? I mean, I think there's a possibility it had something to do with it. I really do.
I think it's strictly herd mentality.
Well, the Ministry of Truth likes the herd mentality.
Right. Yeah, but all right. I think it's third grade stuff. I really do. I think in the third grade, I've been there, you've been there. We were in the third grade. We weren't in the third grade at the same time, but we were the third grade. I think one of the greatest fears you have is to stand out as different. Just to be different. You know, to kind of have your pants pulled down in front of everybody. Like you get singled out for being different. Now, some kids thrive on that. There's always the class clown or whatever. They're acting out for whatever reason. They're getting their ass kicked at home. They come to school and they act out whatever. But there's always a little bit of rebel. There's somewhat of a rebel everywhere. There's somebody that fights against the system. All right, let me say this real quick. It got made into a movie. There was a guy that was a teacher. Got made into a movie because the guy ended up getting fired over it. There was a guy in California. I remember he was on Phil Donahue years ago when I was in college, and our psychology professor showed this clip. So this guy comes in and Donahue sets him up with, tell us what happened. He goes, well, I'm teaching American history. I'm a history teacher. And one day I'm talking about the Third Reich and I'm talking about the rise of Nazism, et cetera, et cetera. And when I do, somebody raises their hand and says, well, I'm certainly glad we live in America where we'd never fall for that. And he goes, well, get this. So he goes, oh, really? So he goes home and talks to his wife and he goes, all right, dear, strap in. I'm getting ready to try something. So he goes in the next day and he's like, pull that blind, shut that door. And all the students are looking at him like, what? And he goes, you're part of the team now, or some bullshit he makes up. By lunchtime, a little nerdy guy I think I can say that, a little guy that everyone picked on followed him into the teacher's lounge. And one of the other teachers like, hey, kid, what do you think you're doing? And he goes, I'm following my leader. I'm here to protect. So now he felt like he belonged to something. But when the guy was telling the story, when he starts to break out this information on them about the cause that they're now a part of, 2 students got up and walked out. Wouldn't have anything to do with it. Guess what he said both of them shared in common?
What was that?
High IQ and C students.
Well, I bet.
And they both saw through it. They're like, I'm not getting it. The ones that took it hook, line, and sinker with a straight A's. I'm in. What can I do? If they were picked on, if they were bullied, they wanted to be a part of it. And he was trying to, within 5 days, the whole thing starts to go ugly. He had to bring in one of those rolling things with the TV. He goes, we're now going to hear from our leader. Turns it on. It's nothing but snow. Then he said he started to hear kids starting to weep and all. He goes, guys, there is no leader. It was all bullshit kind of thing. It gets him in trouble. He gets fired. And he gets fired because he was manipulating the minds of these kids or some kind of thing. But he did it to prove a point to them. Watch how easily you follow this. I thought again, though, it was interesting that the 2 that balked were high IQ and average students.
Yeah, I understand. Trust me, been there, done that. I have a quick story of I get to the 6th grade, and I was one of those kids that the 6th grade was still in elementary school. So it's the fall, and I come to class the first cool day of school that year. Weather-wise, it was cool. And I have on this jacket. And my 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Wright, I'll never forget it. She asked me, she said, Charles, why do you have on a orange jacket? Why? And I said, well, it's because of Miss Simpkins. She's like, what? And I told her why. So, and I'll get to what I said to her in a minute. So she says, come with me. We go to Miss Simpkins' class, who was teaching the 5th grade. I was in Miss Simpkins' 5th grade class. And my 6th grade teacher says, tell her what you just told me. And I told her. I didn't stutter, stumble, no delay. Yeah, I just told her. So this is what happened. When I was in the 5th grade, I don't know, some people may remember these 100, 150 experiments that you would get from Radio Shack, where they had diodes and transistors and so on and so forth. And you would connect one wire to, a transistor, another wire to this or a diode or whatever. And you could conduct these experiments or make a little, electronic, buzzer or whatever, light emitting diode, whatever it was. And I used to love those things. So I blew through the 50, blew through the 100, and now I'm dealing with the 150. And I'm having an issue with the 150 because the wires are color coded. And I'm slightly colorblind. Mm-hmm. So I'll never forget that Miss Simpkins coming to me saying, well, Charles, if you're having a hard time with this, maybe you should go and do the easier ones. I didn't quite understand that the wires were just color coded. No one had ever explained to me that there was a difference, that there wasn't a difference between the wires. It was just color coded differently, and that's it. What she said to me was, maybe this is too hard for you. Go do the easier ones because you're not that bright.
Right.
So that pissed me off. I mean, really pissed me off. Mm-hmm. So now it's getting cool outside. And my mother, it was already cold. My mother, she takes me shopping for some clothes, and we go into the store, and she's like, I need to get you a light jacket. And I point to a jacket, and she said, why the hell would you want an orange jacket? I said, that's the one I want. And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I want the orange jacket.
Were you in the hunting section? That's what
No, actually it wasn't a hunting section. No, it wasn't. So I wear the jacket to class the next day, and I wore it every day, every single day. And Miss Simpkins would look at me, and she would just have utter disgust for me. But the reason she had utter disgust was because Earlier that year, she had said she hated the color orange.
Wow.
She hated it. And I didn't forget that you hated the color orange. So when my 6th grade class, when I get there with an orange jacket and Mrs. Wright asked me why I have an orange jacket on, I said, because Miss Simpkins doesn't like it. And she's like, well, come on, we're going to talk to Miss Simpkins. Now you tell Miss Simpkins why you have an orange jacket. Yeah, because you don't like it, Miss Simpkins. And I wore it every single day because I knew you didn't like it. And Miss Simpkins just looking at me. And I can only imagine the words that were coming to her head as I'm telling her this. And I'm saying it to her just like I'm saying it to you now. I'm not holding back at all. But you pissed me off. You really pissed me off and you insulted my intelligence. And I'm going to stand up for what's right in any way that I can. You're not going to just get me to roll over or bend over or bow down. I'm not going to do it. I'm not. And she couldn't say anything to me. I'm sorry, but you shouldn't have told me what your weakness was, because I'm going to exploit it by wearing this orange jacket every single day. And I did it.
Did y'all make up after
Nope.
this? I mean, they're
Never
okay.
said a word to her after that. After
Right.
me and Miss Wright left her class, and I remember Mrs. Wright looking at me saying, wow, I was not expecting that. I was not expecting you to say that.
And more power to you. Wear orange proudly.
Yeah, I sure do. Still to this day, I wear orange proudly. But the reason I even tell the story is because sometimes you have to do the right thing or at least express your displeasure with someone. And I kind of looked at what the government and what some certain people, even outside of the government, were doing to us as just human beings during that whole COVID era. I'm not just going to lay down and bend over when I know that you're trying to either get over on me in some way, shape, fashion, or form. I'm not going to do it, man. I'm going to say the right thing. I'm going to say the truth. Sometimes the truth may hurt. It's not going to hurt me. It may hurt the people that don't want to hear it, but it's not my fault. It's not.
Yeah, and I've told this one several times before. I'm going to tell it again in this context. It was kind of shocking to me, as you know, other than both of my parents, it was going through their last years. Whenever they had something medical related, I had to be there with them, transport my dad somewhere or whatever. I would go ahead and wear the mask in hospitals. I'm like, I'm not playing this game here. But when it came to anywhere else I went, I ended up getting kicked out of 2 places. And I'll say it was a Rite Aid and a GNC. And the GNC and the Rite Aid, I never went back in again. And that's another part of the story. But, you know, I heard different doctors, and I was watching Joe Rogan, and the doctor was on, and he goes, hey, if they challenge you, and it was in the governor's executive order in Virginia, it said if you have a medical condition, it can't be asked of you what it is, and that is an out for wearing the mask. So I would walk into most places, and when I would walk in, somebody would say, hey, what about your mask? I'm like, medical, just keep walking.
Right.
And generally didn't cause a problem, except the Rite Aid girl took me on, the GNC guy. We got into a big fight. And I said to him, are you following the governor's executive order or you have your own rule? I'm not arguing with you about that. It's my health I'm worried about. I'm like, stay your ass at home then, you know? And so we go back and forth. And I said, all right, look, you're pressuring me to put on a mask or leave your store. Understand I'll never shop here again. Are you with that? You do whatever the hell you want. I don't give a shit. You know, like I said, okay, I'm gone. I never went back. Anyway, so I'm in a Walmart, you know, and a guesstimate of the Walmart I'm in,
Jack,
probably 200 people.
I hate to interrupt, but can I show something really quick? Just really quick. This was me during COVID, if you can see that.
This mask is as useless as our government.
Yes, that's what I rolled around in during COVID. If you want me to wear a mask, trust me, I have a statement for it. I have a statement. I'm sorry for the interruption.
All right. Well, and again, I've told this story many times that I'm trying to say it for the impact of the looking into the eyes of another human being. I walk into Walmart like I do every day. Guy goes, hey, sir, what about your mask? And I'm like, medical, keep walking, right? So I go to the pharmacy. I'm guesstimating 200, 250 people in a Walmart. I don't know, right? Between employees and people, I am the only person in there not wearing a mask, the only one. So I'm standing in line. There's 2 people in front of me in the pharmacy line. And I look at the corner of my eye and I see this guy and he's kind of bent over looking at me like this. And I see him out of the corner of my eye and he goes, hey, how are you doing this? And I played dumb and I go, hey, how am I doing what? And he goes, how are you not wearing a mask? And I do this. I'm like, I choose not to. You choose not to. I mean, like he goes, oh, you just choose not to. I'm like, no, I come in the door. If they say anything, I say medical. If they don't give me any shit, I keep walking. If they do, I'll leave. If they want to kick me out, they can kick me out. But the look in his eyes, and he looks at me, he goes, you just don't wear it. I said, no. And he goes, Marge, to his wife, you hear this? Well, son of a bitch, damn it. And he rips his off.
Mhm.
True story. He goes, God, that son of a bitch. And he just takes his off. You see this, Marge? And she goes, yeah, I guess. Then she takes her. And it's like this big moment of revelation to both of them. And I thought, wow. So then I read an article that says 86% of people wearing masks think it's bullshit, but they don't want to be looked at askew by people around them. They don't want the social impact of being different.
Mhm.
I didn't care. I was more worried about, did you ever see Midnight Express?
Yes.
I saw it by accident. I went to see something and then I was like, let me check out this Oliver Stone guy. First movie, he won the Academy Award. That was his first movie, right? It's about the kid that's trying to get heroin out of Turkey and gets busted, et cetera, et cetera. There's a scene in the movie, and when I was watching how people reacted to COVID, and those of you who haven't watched this, go watch this scene. They put him in the kind of mentally ill section for a while, and he's really starting to lose it. So they have like a turning wheel, almost like when you have a beast of burden that walks a circle to, run the grinder on some kind of corn or some other, kind of grain. They're all walking around this stone. And my memory was they're walking around it like counterclockwise. And you can see in his eyes, the guy that played the part, he was a phenomenal actor. The guy, you can tell it's like, if I keep walking with the rest of this group, and they're just making these grunting sounds as they walk around the circle. If I go the opposite direction, if I don't go the opposite direction, I'm getting ready to lose my mind. That was the scene.
Mhm.
So he like stopped and he starts turning and walking clockwise back into him. And they're like, it's like from every zombie movie. And they're
Right.
pushing him and everything. And he works against them. Then he regains his sanity. That's exactly how I felt in COVID. That's how I felt with that guy. When he looked at me and he goes, what do you mean you just choose not to? I'm like, here's the deal, dude. I walk in. If they kick me out, they kick me out. If not, I'm not going to wear this face diaper and act like I'm going along with this bullshit. I'm just not going to do it.
Not going to do it.
And the look in his face was, you can do that? So I wonder, I say all that to say, I wonder how prevalent that view was. A lot of people were like, well, I'm not about to try to buck this, but I'm a coward in so many different, and I'm not a tough guy. I just made up my mind. I'm not going to go along with this. Should I have spoken out about a lot of more things probably during that time, especially in the environment where I was teaching? Yeah, I should have said more because I used to listen to a lot of bullshit. Individually, people would approach me. I wouldn't do things that I didn't think. Now, that's another thing. When I got back, I was out of the school for 18 months teaching on Zoom. When I came back, this is beautiful. I go to my doctor and said, please write me one of these notes that says that I'm adverse to the mask.
Mhm.
You just don't want to do it. I'm like, whatever, doc. Can you help a brother out here? And so she writes it. So I come back with my HR person. It's like, oh, you got a medical. Oh my God, you're going to need to wear a shield. A shield? Yeah, right. So I never do. I slip in the back door every day. I go straight to my office. You don't have to wear it in the office. And then I would go out a couple of doors and I would go to where I was where I was also not required to wear it while teaching. I'm in a lecture hall, right? But what's funny is I go to see one of my supervisors one day and I walk in and he's there, baby. He's there.
Mhm.
It's this. And I walk in without it because we have a meeting. We're going to be at a table 6 feet apart or more, probably 8 feet apart down this table. And he goes, where's your mask? And I'm like, yeah, I got one of those exemption things. Well, you have your shield, don't you? I'm like,
Gosh.
you really want me to put this on? Yes. So they gave us the shields from the chemistry department, right? It's got a little pad up here.
Right.
So these are two grown men. He's sitting down there, mask up past his eyes. And it's a cloth mask with some kind of slogan on it or something, be kind to animals or some bullshit. It's a face diaper. It's what it is. And then I got this plastic thing and we're grown men sitting across the table. But I did it for him. I mean, he was like, well, I certainly hope you put yours on. I'm like, all right, so fine, I'll put it on. Okay, great. And I'm like, I don't want to do this, but I guess in the moment I have somebody that is my supervisor asking me to put on a shield. Okay, a shield. I am totally open to the air except for a piece of plastic. So that's what was the compromise thing. So I carried the shield at all times in my bag and never put it on until that I got called on it that day. Now I went into class. This was another thing too, and you can understand how I think jurisdictionally. I go into class and I walk to the podium and all these students have masks on in the class and they're all looking at each other. Finally, one of them got the guts. They're like, Mr. Moore, do we have to wear a mask? Check the school policy.
Mm-hmm.
But check the school policy. So you're saying we can go without a mask? I'm like, check the school policy. So the next class, 2 had them off, then 4 had them off, then 6 had them off. And I didn't say a word. So they're kind of like, are you okay if we don't? And I'm like, check the school policy. That's all I would say. And they saw me never wear it. So it wasn't long before no one was wearing one in the class. And if somebody came by and stuck their head in the window and said, Mr. Moore, I'm like, hey, you talk to them. I am not about to tell them they have to wear a mask in my class. No way am I ever going to say that. But when they asked me, I just said, check school policy. And the policy was wear it or whatever. So anyway, those are great times.
Yeah.
It's not like we lived through the worst of times in world history, but it was fascinating to watch people and how they reacted to stuff. All right, so what would you like to say in close? Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, there's definitely going to be documentaries years down the road on this as to the mass psychosis when it came to COVID.
Right.
And the response to COVID, how some countries dealt with it versus other countries, how reporting wasn't consistent, how we realized that hospitals and medical organizations were being paid on a per diagnosis basis. We go on and on and on as to all the shenanigans that were going on during COVID, all for green, all for money. Yep, all for money.
Well, if you're going to screw with people and mind numb them and all the rest, you might as well make money off of it too. That might be the factor. It may be a factor, but clearly one of the things near you, I went into a restaurant. This was another one of my kind of walkouts. And I walked up and the receptionist girl's like, sir, you're going to need a mask. And I'm like, I don't need a mask to eat. Well, that's true, but you need a mask to get to the table. And I'm like, the table's right over there. I'm like, ma'am, I'm in a guesstimate. That's 20 feet. Yes, sir. So you want me to wear a mask from here to 20 feet to the table? Well, yes, sir. That's what's required. Have a nice day. Walked out. Go to the next place. And I said, can I just go up to the bar and eat? They're like, absolutely. And that was it. And so I ate at that place instead of, and I can't be upset with the girl. She's got orders. She's all masked up above her eyes. And I'm like, You're telling me I got to walk from this point to that point, then I can take it off. Yes. Well, then I'm out of here. Take care. Have a good day. Whatever. That was it. Because it's just like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
It wasn't her business. She didn't care.
That's true too. But also it's not fair to her for her to have cut me a break. The next thing you know, we got a manager on her ass. She's got orders. Everybody wears the mask, the walk of shame to 10 feet to this table, and then they can take it back off. All right. What else do we want to say here in closing?
This is in closing. Thank goodness for podcast, especially during that time period. I learned an awful lot, but Joe Rogan having Dr. Robert Malone and Peter McCullough on literally changed how I thought about not just COVID, but viruses and how the government responds to this stuff. To have pretty much the guy who invented the mRNA process, and then to have Peter McCullough, who was the most published physician on the planet, and both of them called BS on all of this, and then to see all the backlash that they got from it. That right there really got me to think that, wait a minute, there's something else going on now. There's something else. And thank you for the podcast. Thank you for alternative media and so on and so forth. That's why I think what we're doing right now, regardless of how many other people are doing it, I don't think there ever can be enough that are doing it. It's just,
Yeah,
it's
I
not.
wonder sometimes. Now, you mentioned, this made me think too. You mentioned some of the positive doctors, the really great doctors that were on with Joe Rogan. I always think back to Gupta being on there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought that was a pivotal moment because, like,
Yes.
when he said, "Hey, dude, I'm rich. You don't think I could have afforded human medicine?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "That really." You remember when Gupta was like, "Hey, it really bothers you there, doesn't it?" He goes, "It ought to bother you." That was
Yeah.
a beautiful comeback.
Yep.
He's like, "Hey, you're the doc. You're the face of that network. You're the doctor face of that network." It was a great comeback. He goes, "Well, it ought to bother you because you people lied. You lied about me." You know, and he tried that kind of kindergarten, like, "Oh, that really seems to get under your skin there, Mr. Rogan, doesn't it?"
Boy.
And it's like, but I love that. He was like, "Well, it ought to bother you because you work for them and you're their medical mouthpiece."
Amazing.
All right.
Okay. That's
Please, moretoconsider.com. Subscribe, comment, give us a like or two there, and watch us for when we're going to be live. We're going to be live on X, and we're also on the Rumble platform, clearly on YouTube a lot. So please listen and like and do all that other stuff. Love you, brother.
all. Love you too, Ron.
All right, let's talk soon.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like the show, subscribe and hit your notification button to get an update when we post another episode. See you soon.